everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing really well. So in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make this super cute spring cardigan made with merino wool, and it has a gorgeous tulip stitch design on it. So let's just get into the tutorial. Okay, so I'm just going to go over my measurements. So for the full length of the cardigan, I'm going to be doing 19 inches, and that is including the hem ribbing. So from shoulder to the hem is going to be 19 inches. And this is just my size. I'm going to be making roughly about an oversized small to medium. I'm going to be doing 2 front panels and a back panel. And for the front panel width, I'm going to be doing a width of 10.25 inches approximately. For the back panel, I'm going to be doing a width of 23.5 inches approximately. And then for the sleeve, I'm going to be doing a length of 14.5 inches approximately, which means that it's going to sit further down the arm, and that is just the style of cardigan I'm going to make. So the cardigan shoulder section is going to actually be kind of going further down the arm, and then the sleeve actually starts sort of about the mid bicep section. And then for my sleeve width, I'm going to be doing about 19 inches. So I'm going to be increasing until the sleeve gets to 19 inches. So including the ribbing, the front panel length is going to be 19 inches, but my ribbing length is going to be 4 inches. And that is going to be the same for the back panel and the sleeve. And then for the inside ribbing, which is against the chest, that is going to be 1.5 inches in width. So for yarn, I'm going to be using this Drops Snow yarn. It's the chunky yarn, and I've got about roughly 800 grams of this, and that is enough for my size. And then for the actual tulip design, I've just got a small amount of the same brand, Drops Snow, and this is the pink yarn and this is a green yarn. I will have the shade names in the description for you. So for the ribbing sections, I'm actually going to be sizing down a hook, so I'm using a 9mm hook. And the reason I'm using a smaller hook for the ribbing is because I want the ribbing to be slightly tighter, and that means that the shape of the cardigan kind of goes inwards and it just has a nice kind of shape to it, if that makes sense. And then for the actual cardigan, I'm going to be using a 10mm hook. I've also got some scissors and a measuring tape, and I'm also going to be using a large sewing needle. I'm not going to be doing any buttonholes for this cardigan because I want to keep it as simple as I can, and I just kind of want it to be a throw-on cardigan rather than a button-up one. So for the first section, I'm going to be doing the front panel, and I'm going to be starting off with the ribbing section, which is indicated in the green. So that is going to be a 4-inch thickness of ribbing, and it's going to be the exact same width as the front panel is going to be. So 10.25 inches. Okay, so to start the front panel, I'm going to be taking my main colour, which is the cream, and I'm going to be making a slip knot. And then I'm going to take my 9mm hook, and I'm going to make a chain of 10, and this is going to be the height of the ribbing that I want, so 4 inches. So 10 chains is equal to 4 inches for me. However, you might want a different length ribbing, so just adjust the chain to match your ribbing height. Once you have your chain, you then want to flip the chain over and insert your hook into that second back bump, so the bump right behind the chain, and then make a single crochet. And then I'm going to be making single crochets into each back bump. So as you can see, I'm inserting my hook, yarning over and pulling through, and then yarning over and pulling through those 2 loops. And I'm repeating that all the way across, and by the end of the row I'm going to have 9 stitches. Once you've done your first row, we're now going to move on to row 2. So you just want to turn the work around, and you want to do 1 single crochet into the first stitch. So just make your single crochet as normal into that first stitch of the row. And then for the next part, we are going to be doing the yarn over slip stitch in the front loop. So that is the loop closest to you. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into that front loop, and then yarn over and pull that through. And then I'm going to pull my first loop through those bottom 2 loops, creating sort of like a slip stitch. And I'm going to be repeating that yarn over slip stitch into the front loop all the way across, and then into my final stitch I'm going to do a single crochet. Once you reach the end of the row, you then just want to turn the work around, and we're now going to be working the same type of row, but this time we're doing the yarn over slip stitch in the back loop. So I do my first single crochet in the first stitch, and then my yarn over slip stitch in the back loop. So again, yarn over, insert your hook into that back loop, yarn over and pull through, and then pull your first loop through the bottom 2 loops. And you want to repeat that yarn over slip stitch all the way across, and then in that final stitch do your single crochet, and that is going to be the end of row 3. Okay, so I've just completed my 3rd row, and now I'm going to be repeating row 2 and row 3 until the ribbing reaches the width of the front panel that I want. So I'm just basically going to keep going until the front panel reaches the 10.25 inches width that I want. So I ended up doing 23 rows to get 10.25 inches, and now I'm going to be starting the actual front panel section. So grab your 10mm hook, and you just want to continue on from where we were. So you want to end up kind of on the top of the work, if that makes sense. And to start the first row of the front panel, we want to chain 1, and I'm just basically going to be making 23 half double crochets because that is how many rows I have. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into that same space, and yarn over and pull through 3 loops on the hook, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through those 3 loops, and that is your half double crochet. So I'm going to repeat that all the way across into each space across the top, just making 1 half double crochet into each. So once you get to the end of the row, this is what it should look like, and we're now going to start our proper stitches for the front panel. So just chain 1 and turn the work, and I'm going to be doing the waistcoat stitch, but instead of a single crochet I'm going to be doing half double crochets. So I'm going to be inserting my hook into those little V posts that were created by the half double crochet instead of the stitches at the top. So just start your work by yarning over, and you're going to insert your hook through that V kind of leg space, insert your hook through those legs and push your hook out to the other side, and on the other side of the work it should look like you are also separating those legs. So insert your hook through that post and then yarn over and pull through that post back to the front, 3 loops on the hook, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So it's just like the half double crochet, but where you insert the hook is different. So I'm going to repeat that into the next stitch, inserting my hook into the next post, pushing through those little legs, making sure that the hook goes through the other side, through those legs at the back, and then yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. And then you want to just repeat that all the way across to the end. So in total you'll do 23 of those half double crochet waistcoat stitches if you're making the same size I am. So I've just completed row 2 and I just done my last waistcoat stitch in that final post. As you can see, they are stacked on top of each other. And then for my next row, I'm just going to chain 1 and turn the work, and I'm going to be repeating the exact same thing as row 2. So I will just make my first waistcoat stitch with the half double crochet into that first post. As you can see where I am separating those little legs with my fingers, that is the point where I'm going to be starting. So I'm going to insert my hook into that post and then just complete that waistcoat stitch as normal, but with the half double crochet, just like that. And then I would just be doing one waistcoat stitch all the way across, and then I'll just be repeating those rows until my panel reaches the front panel length. Okay, so I've just completed my final row, which is the 34th row, which has given me 19 inches of work in total, and now I'm just going to fasten off. So I'm just going to chain 1 and cut the yarn like that, and then just pull the yarn out and then pull tight, and it will create a knot, and we'll weave this in later. And then you just want to make 2 of these panels, and this is what the stitch is looking like, and then we've got the ribbing at the bottom. So now I'm going to move on to the sleeve. So as you can see for the sleeve, I've done something similar, but you can see that this is more of a V shape, and this is just where I've increased. So I've started off with my cuff ribbing at the bottom, and then I basically made my first row of half double crochets, and then I started that waistcoat stitch. But what I did instead was every other row after that first row of half double crochet, I did 2 of those waistcoat stitches at either end. So this was a normal half double crochet row, the second row was an increased row, and then the third row was a normal row, and then I just repeated row 2 and 3 until the work reached the width of the sleeve that I wanted. And then after the work reached the width, I then just did normal rows, no increases. So I'm just going to go over that quickly. So you just want to basically make a ribbing section, which is going to be the same length as the hem, so 4 inches. So I'm going to be chaining up 10 once again. And now I'm just going to complete the ribbing for as many rows as I've done for this sleeve, and I was happy with this amount. So as you can see, when I fold the sleeve in half like this, and I'll just show you kind of how it looks on my arm roughly. So it's a bit difficult to see, but this is sort of the width of the cuff, so I was happy with this amount. So I'm just going to do my ribbing, and then I'm going to come back and show you how we do the increase section. Okay, so I've just done my 21 rows of ribbing, and now I'm just going to switch to my 10mm hook, and I'm going to do the exact same thing as I did before. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to do a half double crochet into each stitch across, so that's about 21 half double crochets. Okay, so I've got my 21 half double crochets, and now we are going to start row 2, which is going to be the start of our increasing. So I want my work to increase from this width to 19 inches total, because that is my end goal for the sleeve width. So currently the cuff width is about 8.5 to 9 inches. So I want to make sure that my panel eventually reaches 19 inches. So I'm just going to chain 1 and turn the work to start my next row. And I'm going to do the exact same stitch, that waistcoat stitch that we were doing before, with a half double crochet. This time I'm going to make 2 in this post. So I'm going to start off with my first one, pushing it through the middle to the other side. That's 1, and then I'm going to make a second one, pushing it into the centre, doing my half double crochet. And now I'm just going to do 1 half double crochet into each of these posts, just like I did before. So that half double crochet waistcoat stitch all the way across, and in that final stitch I'm going to do another 2 half double crochets in that post. So I've just reached the end of the row, so I'm now going to do my 2 half double crochet waistcoat stitches in that post to make an increase. And now we've increased the row by 2 stitches, so I've now got 23 stitches in the row. And now I'm just going to start my 3rd row, which is going to be a normal row. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn the work. Now on the right side, and I'm just going to do 1 half double crochet waistcoat stitch into each stitch. So there's no increases. So I'm just going into that first one right here, pushing it through the center, making my half double crochet, and then same into the next stitch. So that is technically those increased stitches there. So 1 in the next stitch. I'm just going to continue across 1 in each stitch, so now 23 of those half double crochet waistcoat stitches. And then I'm just going to continue to repeat row 2 and row 3 until I have 19 inches. So I done a increase row every other row up to row 17. So at row 17 I'm going to do my last increase row. So from row 18 to 26 I'm just going to do normal rows to get the height up to where I want the sleeve length to be. So if you've increased the amount of rows that you need to get your sleeve width, but it's still not the correct length, then you can just do normal rows until the sleeve reaches the length that you want. So for me that is 14.5 inches. So I'm just basically going to continue the increase every other row and then normal rows until the sleeve is complete. Okay, so for the back panel you essentially just want to do the exact same thing you did for the front panel, but you're just making a much larger piece. So the back panel width I wanted to be 23.5 inches, so I've basically started the ribbing off with that like length. So I started off with my chain of 10, single crocheting across, and then for row 2 onwards I did that yarn over slip stitch with single crochets either side. So in total I did 52 rows for the ribbing, and then I did my first row with half double crochets. Then I did that half double crochet waistcoat stitch literally all the way up until I reached the height of the panel that I wanted. So that is going to be the exact same height as the front panel, so I did 34 rows in total, including that first half double crochet row. So it's basically like a giant version of the front panel. You're just doing more rows for the ribbing, and you've got a lot more stitches in your row when you do the waistcoat stitch, but it's pretty much the exact same. So I've done my front panel, my back panel, and I've done both of my sleeves, fastened everything off, and now I'm just going to be showing you how I attach everything. So I've now got my back panel laid out, and I've got it so it's on the inside out, so the ribbing should be facing away from you. And then you want to take your front panel, either of them, it doesn't matter which one, and you want to make sure that the front panel is on the right side. So basically how it would lay if the cardigan was laid out in front of you. So I'm just going to move this down now, and we're just basically going to be attaching these seams across the top. So this is going to be partially the shoulder and partially the like arm section, so it's going to kind of sit slanted down. That's why it does look quite like wide, but once it's tried on it will sort of slant to the side and the seam will kind of go down the top part of the bicep. So you don't have to sew if you don't want to, however I just think that doing it this way it gives you the most seamless look, it gives you the flattest edges. If you do single crochets or slip stitches it just sometimes can look a little bit bulky and you have this sort of ridge, and then the tightness of the stitch kind of conflicts with the actual work, so then you get this kind of dip and then the seams kind of go out in an M shape, and that's not always the most flattering look. So just take the yarn that you've been using and place it on your needle, and I'm basically just going to be weaving the yarn like a snake motion all the way across until I get to the end of the front panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert my needle sort of somewhere on the side of the panel to just get it started, and I'm going to kind of make a knot. So I'm pushing the needle from the back to the front through both panels on the side and pulling through, and I'm just going to leave a little short tail that I can weave in later. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat that a couple of times so that the yarn is attached. So I'm going back to front to just sort of start it off. Try not to get it tangled. There we go. So as you can see now, it's kind of like fastened into the work, and now we can start our actual sewing. So I'm going to be doing kind of like what I said, the sort of snaking the work, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually grab the inside loops only. So I'm grabbing the inside loop of the back panel, the inside loop of the front panel, and I'm going to pull it through that. And then I'm going to grab the inside loop of the back panel again and the inside loop of the front panel and pull through like that. And I'm basically repeating it, so it's sort of like a snaked spiral going round. Again, inserting my needle in the inside loop on the back panel and the inside loop of the front panel and pull through. And I'm just repeating that all the way across the work, and you'll get, as you can see, a nice neat flat edge. Okay, and then for that last stitch, I'm just going to weave those inside loops together, and then I'm going to kind of repeat what I did over on this edge on this side. So I'm just going to kind of grab the side and then a loop sort of on the back panel on the inside like that, and then pull through. And I'm going to repeat that a few times to make sure it's weaved in. And then I'm just going to make a knot. So I'm just going to repeat what I've done again, and this time I'm going to pull through, leaving a small loop over here, and then I'm going to pull my needle through that loop and just pull gently to create a knot. And then that is all fastened in, and you can just weave the end onto the inside of the work. So you can just flip the work over here and just weave it onto the inside, back and forth. And then you just want to repeat the exact same thing on the other side to attach the front panel for the other side. So you then just want to repeat what I've done between the back panel and the front panel. So that is indicated by the green lines between the FP and BP panels for the sleeves. So as you can see, on either side of the front and back panel attachment, you've got the sleeves, and you just want to attach the top part of the sleeve, so not the area where the cuff is, to that line against the front panel and back panel. So you will end up with what is on the diagram but all attached together, and then you just want to flip everything back to the normal way a cardigan would sit, and we are now going to do the ribbing. Okay, so I'm now going to be doing the ribbing, and for the ribbing you just want to take your main colour and make a slip knot. And for the ribbing around the inside of the cardigan, I'm going to be making it 1.5 inches. So for that, I'm going to be chaining 5. So I'm going to be starting my inside ribbing in the bottom corner of the right side of the cardigan. So when the cardigan is laying face down, I'm going to be starting on the right side, going up around the neck and back down. If you're right-handed, you want to start on the left side, chain outwards this way, and then work in rows all the way up the left side of the neck and back down, finishing on the right side. So it's the exact same pattern, you're just doing it on the opposite side that I am. So take your slip knot and your ribbing, and I'm just going to kind of turn the ribbing to the side because I'm actually going to be working across this side, going up and around the neck. So I'm just going to insert my hook into the sort of the first space on the bottom of the ribbing and pull that slip knot through. like so, and then I'm just going to chain 5 because that is going to equal about 1.5 inches when I do my first few rows. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So because I've chained 5, I'm actually going to have 4 stitches in my row, because first chain is just going to be the turning chain. So similar to what we did for the ribbing on the hem of the cardigan, I'm going to flip the chains over and do a single crochet into the second chain from the hook, and then single crochet into the next 3 back bumps. So that's 2, 3, and 4. So I've got 4 stitches in my row, and after your 4th single crochet, we're then going to be finishing the row by doing one slip stitch into the next 2 stitches on this ribbing. So here's where I started, so my next 2 stitches are going to be right here and right here. So I'm just going to insert my hook into that next stitch, yarn over and pull through, and then pull that first loop through the second, and I'm going to do that into the next stitch, insert my hook, yarn over and pull through, pull the first loop through the second. So that is the end of row 1, and for row 2 I'm just going to turn the work. So I'm just kind of going to turn it as best as I can because I don't need to turn the whole cardigan, just the ribbing part. Now we're working along the back of the work, and from this point forward we're going to do the yarn over slip stitch. So I'm going to skip my first 2 slip stitches that I made, so just ignoring them, and I'm going to do my yarn over slip stitch into the next 3 stitches in that front loop, and then in that final stitch I'm going to do my single crochet, so just like I've been doing in all of my previous ribbing sections. So skipping those first 2 slip stitches, yarn over slip stitch into the front loop of the next stitch, and then again 2 more times. And then to do my last stitch, which is the 4th stitch of the row, a single crochet into that stitch, like that. Okay, so for this section of the ribbing I am going to be chaining 1 and turning the work because it's going to give a bit more of a seamless finish, whereas down at the sleeves and the hem we kind of wanted a bit of that tightness and that compactness to create that shape. We don't really need to create the shape for this particular part of the ribbing, so I am going to chain 1 and turn the work for this particular ribbing pattern. So I've just turned the work back to the front, and I'll start my row as per usual, single crochet on that edge, like that. Now I'm at the front of the work, I'll be doing 3 yarn over slip stitches in the back loop. So 1, 2, and 3. Then to complete my row, I'm going to do 1 slip stitch into the next 2 spaces. So that's 1 and that's 2. Okay, so we're basically going to be repeating row 2 and row 3. So I've basically just done row 1, row 2, row 3, and then this row that I've just completed was technically row 2. So I'm just going to be doing row 2, row 3, row 2, row 3, all the way up until I get to the other side right here in this bottom corner. So just as a recap, I've just done technically my row 2 pattern. So now I'm going on the back of the work, turning my work around, and now I'm going to do my row 3 pattern. So I'm going to skip these 2 slip stitches, do 3 yarn over slip stitches in the front loop of each stitch. So 1, 2, and 3. And then to finish my row, a single crochet into that final stitch. Just gonna push that hook through a bit more. Okay, and then at the end of the row, chain 1, turn the work, bringing it back to the front of the work, making a single crochet into that first stitch, and then I'm going to do my 3 yarn over slip stitches into the back loop. And then finishing the row with 2 slip stitches. Okay, so that is the pattern, and as you can see the ribbing is building up quite nicely. So I'm basically just going to be repeating this now all the way across the edge. You just want to repeat row 2 and row 3 of this pattern until you have finished it. And once you get to the bottom corner you can then just chain 1 and fasten off. And then I'm going to weave in all of my ends off camera, and then I'm going to be stitching the tulip design. Okay, so I'm now going to be showing you how to do the embroidery section. So I've just done all of these little tulips, and I've already done the front panel on the right side. I'm going to show you the front panel on the left side, but it's all the same. And I decided to go for this arrangement. So basically I've done a row of these 3 tulips right at the bottom, spaced them out evenly, and then for the following row I did 2 tulips in the centre but slightly above the row before. So I've kind of gone for a 3-2-3-2 sequence so that they kind of all have this evenly stacked motion. Essentially I'm just going to be taking my green yarn and I'm going to cut a shortish piece, because for each stem you really don't need a lot of yarn. So I'm just using my green yarn that is the same brand as this one, the Drops Snow yarn, and I'm just going to cut a short piece. So just cut a short piece of that, and then for your tulip colour you want to probably triple the amount that you cut for the green section. So I'm just going to pretty much triple that amount and cut it. Just set the tulip section, tulip colour aside, and then grab your sewing needle, just place it on the sewing needle. And I'm just going to start in this bottom right corner because it's technically where I started on this side. It's just mirrored, so I'm basically going to be inserting my needle right in that bottom right corner of the left panel, and I'm going to basically create an upside down arrow. But the first tulip kind of comes a little bit out from that corner, so there is still some space around it. So I'm not going anywhere near the ribbing. I'm going kind of like a row above the ribbing and maybe like a row out from the side, if that makes sense. So roughly about here. Again, I'm just eyeballing it because at the end of the day this is a handmade cardigan. It doesn't need to be perfect, but if you do want to use a measuring tape you can. So going from the back to the front in any kind of stitch, but I highly recommend pushing your needle through kind of a stitch section where you split it so that you get a little bit more security that it's not going to just fall out. So pull that through, and you want to just leave a tail on the back like this so that you can weave that in. And just hold it there with your finger so you don't lose it. And now I'm going to basically be doing an upside down arrow, so a downward facing arrow, and this is going to represent the stem. So for the stem I'm just basically going to be going up maybe ½ an inch and then pushing my yarn through to create a vertical line like this. Just pull that through to the tension you want so that it's in the position you want it, like this. And then I'm going to do the sideward petals. So I'm going back down, from back to front, back down to the original space where I inserted the needle, and push that through, or pull that through, sorry. And then I'm going to go up diagonally, up to the left, not as high as where we went for the stem, pushing the needle about halfway up, but to the side, to the left diagonally. So pull that through, like that. So now we've got one leaf, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the right side. Go back to the middle, pull that through, and then go up diagonally about halfway up the stem to the right, and then pull that through. And that's literally the stem all done. So once you have completed the stem part, you can just tie together in a double knot. Don't pull too tight for the first knot, but for the second one you can pull nice and tight, and then you get this all secure, and then you can just weave this in with your hook later on. So the tulip section is a little bit more detailed, but it's still nice and simple. We're just basically going to be making an outline of the tulip and then filling it in. So it's sort of like when you do an outline drawing and then you colour it in, except we're just doing this with yarn. And I'm going to be starting the tulip section at the top part of the stem. So I'm just inserting the needle from the front to the back at that top part of the stem, right there, and just pull that through. Again, just like you did with the stem, leave a short tail at the back that you are easily able to weave in later. And now I'm going to be making a V shape with the pink yarn. So I'm going to go up to the left diagonally, just like I did for that green leaf on the stem, up to the left diagonally and pull through, and then back to the centre and up to the right diagonally and pull through. So we want to create that little V shape for the base of the tulip. Up to the right, through. Okay, so you should have a nice little V shape. And then I'm basically going to be doing 2 vertical lines either side of those diagonals. So I'm going to go up a little bit on the left and up a little bit on the right. So I'm going to push my needle where that left diagonal line ended and push and pull through. And then I'm going to go up slightly vertically, just a short amount because we only want this to be a short line. And then repeat that on the opposite side. So now we should kind of have this sort of semicircle shape. And now we are going to be doing the spiky section of each tulip leaf. So I'm going to be doing a diagonal line down sort of towards the centre area, so going diagonally down to the right from that left vertical line there. So as you can see, I've just pointed my needle diagonally to the right of that line, and now I'm going to pull through. And then I'm going to connect it back up to that vertical line on the left. And then I'm going to just mirror that exact same line on the right side. So I'm just going to push my needle diagonally downwards or to the left of that vertical line on the right and pull through, and then join it to that vertical line on the right. So now you should have something like this. And then we are going to do that pointed section in the centre. So we want to go back down to that line diagonally going down to the right that we just completed and pull through. And we're basically going to be doing an upside down V right in the centre to create that. So we're going to be joining the centre section. So you just want to go from that point upwards and pull through. And then from that same point on the right side and pull through, and then connect it right back up to the centre. So that is the tulip all marked out. Now as you can see, there is a little bit of white space in the centre, so I'm just basically now going to be colouring it in, so to speak, by inserting my hook back towards the centre, so that's centre point right where we started the pink tulip section, and pull through. And to fill the space, I'm basically just going to be doing lines kind of going outwards to colour this in. So as you can see, now that is the tulip all complete, and then once you have done that, you can then just cut the yarn and do the exact same thing, make a little double knot, and then after you've done your double knot, you can just weave in those ends. So now you just need to figure out where you want to place your next one. You don't have to do the exact same arrangement that I've done where I have scattered them across. Okay, so now I'm going to do the 3-2 sequence on this side, so I'm just spacing them out evenly. So basically I'm going to do the exact same thing that I done here, 2 more times spaced out 4 inches apart, and then the row above I am going to just do 2 tulips in those kind of middle spaces of the 3, again 4 inches apart, and then I'm just going to repeat that pattern all the way up to the top, and then you just want to weave in any ends on the inside of the work, and then the cardigan is all complete. So then, to make the cardigan a little bit more flattering, I then decided to pin and steam it with the iron. So I just pinned it to an old beach towel and then I steamed it with the iron. I found that this is the best way to block the work and just make it a little bit more flattering. And that is everything for this tutorial. I hope you all enjoyed it and loved making your tulip cardigans. Let me know how you found it, and if you have any ideas of what you'd like me to make next, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.